Hello, welcome to the NutriShare podcast. I'm Gibran Maciel with Storytellers Consulting, and I'll be your host for today. Today we're chatting with NutriShare consumer Sally Moore. Sally's been receiving parenteral nutrition, also called TPN, for 32 years. Sally was born with intestinal fetal malrotation, which did not manifest itself until well into her 30s, when she became pregnant. Sally had a major resection of her small intestine, the part that absorbs nutrients, so she relies on TPN for nutrition. Today, Sally shares her journey with us, from struggling to cope and recover to flourishing after receiving TPN at home. With daily TPN, Sally has had a daughter who recently started college. She travels throughout the continental United States, Europe, and Australia, and has continued to live and enjoy her life. Are you a long-term home TPN consumer? Find out if NutriShare is right for you. Visit their website at nutrishare.com or call 1-800-HOME-TPN. Again, that's 1-800-HOME-TPN. Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoy the show. In 3, 2, 1, welcome to the NutriShare podcast. I'm Gibran Maciel, your host. Today I am pleased to be chatting with Sally Moore, NutriShare consumer for how long now?
33.
30.
4, 5, let's see, 32 years.
32 years. Yeah.
Time flies.
Time flies. Time flies, yeah. You've been a consumer for longer than I've been alive.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Let's just get a few things out of the way. First, I'm Gibran Maciel. I'm with Storytellers Consulting. We help you tell your story. That's the pitch. NutriShare has contracted me to chat with some of their consumers, both from a community building perspective, just chat to the extent that you're willing to share. I think that the idea is that some consumers can find solace and support in each other's stories, and in a roundabout way, also share the incredible value that NutriShare brings to its consumers by building community, by offering, top credentialed clinicians to be at your service, et cetera, et cetera. It's not going to be an infomercial for NutriShare. We're here to talk about you, but just sort of why we're doing this, right?
Right.
So we were connected through our mutual friend, Richard Leong, who said, you know what, Sally is interested in telling our story. So here we are. This is the first one. Thanks so much for coming on.
You're welcome.
And just to also just be totally clear, you've not been paid for this.
No.
Okay. Yeah. So we're just here to talk.
Right.
Awesome. Okay. So you've been on TPN for 33 years. NutriShare has been around for 25.
Right.
So
when I first came out of the hospital, I was with another company that Rod Okamoto actually was employed with. Okay. So it was prior to his starting his own company.
Okay. And what was that? We were chatting offline a little bit, and you told me that you'd had kind of like a quest to get diagnosed correctly, right?
Right.
Until you had the exploratory. Well, why don't you talk to us through it, and then sort of
okay.
like what was that like when it's like, hey, you're TPN-dependent now? What was that arc like for you?
First of all, like I told you prior to starting this, I was extremely healthy, 33-year-old woman. I've been swimming with master's program, and I was runner and biker, and so I was really into exercise. So when I went to the hospital with severe gut pain, and I mean severe, I was 20 weeks pregnant, week of Christmas, and no one besides my husband, who is a veterinary pathologist, and said, this looks like a torsion of the gut to me. Everyone else said, doesn't happen in humans.
He just called it.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
The surgeon said, we don't see it in humans, stick to horses, to my husband.
Wow.
Well, they put me in a room for observation where I slowly went into shock. They pulled me out for emergency exploratory surgery and found that, in fact, my husband was right. It was a torsion of the gut. It's very unusual. I was born with fetal malrotation, which is a condition where your intestines don't fully develop, and so they don't adhere to the intestinal lining. So I had free-floating intestines all my life.
And you didn't know it?
I had no clue.
Wow.
It never manifested itself in any way, which is also unusual. So it was just the pregnancy, I think, that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Can I stop you? So, one of my I kind of like this perspective is like, kind of explaining this to a layperson, with not a huge amount of background in this area. But, my understanding is a lot of different diagnoses will get you to short bowel. And a lot of different diagnoses can get you to, TPN-dependent. So a fetal malrotation and torsion of the gut. Can you explain that a little bit more fully to us?
Fetal malrotation is a birth defect, basically.
Got it.
Okay, so that was beyond anybody's control. And then when my intestines just started twisting up on themselves, just like it happens in horses. So they were strangulating themselves, basically. And that won't happen to you. So it's not anything you need to worry about. It won't happen to most people on the planet. It's very, very, very rare. Yeah. But it was pretty painful, I can tell you that. And so when they sliced me open, thinking that I might have a bleeding stomach ulcer, that was their best guess. They found a gangrene intestine instead. And so they had to resect all my small bowel. So I have the lower 2/3 of my colon attached to the lower part of my stomach.
Oh my goodness.
Basically.
Okay.
Yeah. So at that time, I think your original question was, what was it like when I found out I'd be on TPN?
Yeah,
forever?
just coming out of that surgery, you've just been handed a completely different lifestyle, right? You've just been handed a wholesale lifestyle change.
Right.
Yeah.
Ignorance is bliss, let me tell you. I had no idea what I was about to face. My husband was pale. He was pretty clued in, but I wasn't. And I was also in intensive care. Like I mentioned before, I had this strong premonition that there was a major event coming in my life. And I was happy that it was this, because I thought this was better than all the alternatives that I had imagined it could have been. So that partly was due to the fact I had no idea what I was up against, and partly due to the fact that it is better than some of the alternatives.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of a combination.
Where did this this idea of you had when you step back from the premonition, you had this idea that something terrible was going to happen. You said you carried that for 2 years almost?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it got more intense and more intense and more intense. And I couldn't, I didn't want to talk to anybody about it, because I really felt like people would say, oh, look at you. You're healthy, you're young, there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
And I wasn't about ready to start going to a bunch of psychiatrists or doctors or anything to sort it out. No, I just said, I know something's coming, but I just have to go with the flow here. Yeah. And that's sort of the way I live my life. I kind of feel like things do happen to you, but if you take it as an opportunity to grow and learn, it can be a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. Do you, was that premonition? You know who talks a lot about premonitions actually is my mother.
Really?
Yeah. She's, we're not really here to talk about faith, but she's like Mexican Catholic. Uh-huh. And I feel like they're a little bit more imbued with kind of like mysticism, you know, especially because there's so much native, folk down in Mexico, and a lot of the shamanistic religions are still practiced, and so there's a lot of talk about, premonitions, and she talks to me, talked to me about them a lot because she felt like she had one, but nothing ever happened, Did you where did this idea of you just kind of had this anxiety building in you, or
anxiety building? But I'll tell you what I think. I think there's all these levels of energy, and it manifests itself in religion or chakras. Yeah. There's so many ways people are connecting with this energy, and I think that's what it is. There was an energy flow out of balance in me, and I don't know, but I could pick up on this. Something is wrong. Something's going to change.
Yeah. And it did.
Yeah. Yeah.
So coming out of this whole thing, what was that initial conversation? Did you have the surgeon follow up with you and be like, hey, we just removed a bunch of your gut? What was that follow up arc like?
You're really out of it for quite a while, because I was in intensive care, and I probably was sleeping close to 20 hours a day.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, for a long time. Then they had to stabilize me enough to transfer me over to UC Davis Medical Center, which was the only place that would put in a mainline catheter. I had a Hickman catheter put in. And prior to being transferred from Sutter Davis, the doctor that I was being transferred to came in to meet me. And I remember my only question for him was, when can I get back to masters swimming? That was the only thing I really was worried about at the time. And he said, as long as you have a catheter, you're staying out of public swimming pools. And so then he left. And he also said, for this
was that the first you had heard of the catheter?
Well, no, I knew people had insinuated I'd have to have a catheter, but I wasn't paying attention to any of that. I was just kind of making it through each day.
Okay.
Then he also said to me, and also for the first year or so, I really don't want to be your doctor. And so when he left, I told Peter, my husband, you got to find me a different doctor. Well, I will tell you that doctor, in my mind, walks on water. He was the smartest man I've ever met. He now works up in Portland. His name is Bruce Wolfe. I adore him. We had a very close relationship for a couple of years there while he was at the med center, and what he told me was the solid truth every single time. If I asked him a question and he didn't know the answer, he'd say, I don't know. We can try this thing, or we can do this. He never told me anything that I couldn't trust. He had a great sense of humor. He was dedicated, devoted, and whip smart.
So why did he tell you didn't want to be your doctor?
Because the first couple of years of my life were in that condition were going to be sheer misery. He knew it. I didn't, but he did. And as much as he tried to help me and he was there to do whatever he could, there wasn't really anything anybody could do. There really wasn't anything. And I'm not a person that wants to take a lot of drugs. Pain drugs make you feel even worse than they help most of the time. So I kind of power through stuff. And this was hard. It was really hard because I was so nauseated. Well, I was nauseated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 3 years. And the only relief from that was when I was actually throwing up. So it was brutal. But it's way better now.
Yeah.
Your body does adapt. And at that time,
for that first year, you just kind of have to, your body just has to go through this adaptive arc.
Right.
Because it's miserable.
It's miserable.
Yeah.
When they originally told me after the surgery that I'd never eat or drink anything again because I'd just get really dehydrated. And I didn't have any ability to absorb nutrients from what I ate. But the truth of that, the true part of that was my stomach my colon couldn't accept the food that the stomach gave it. So it would push everything back to the stomach. The stomach would then be nauseated, And so anyway, I thought I still have a totally normal throat, esophagus, and stomach. And if I don't eat at all, that's not going to do any of that any good.
Yeah. Use it or lose it, right?
Yeah. So I kind of just experimented and just kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And eventually things got better.
Yeah.
Right about the time you're ready to give up, things do get better. I had a fortune cookie way back in the beginning, and the fortune was nature, time, and patience are the three great physicians. And I kept thinking of that fortune because it was really true. In my case, very true. You just had to let your body recover enough. And for the first 6 months or so, really, I slept. I slept all the time. I would sleep 20 hours a day, 18 hours a day. I just slept.
Yeah.
And so...
Were you just unconscious, or were you pumped full of drugs and having dreams? Or?
No, I was no drugs, no nothing. And my body just needed to recover. Wow. And the only way it could do it was to just sleep. And I would sleep and sleep and sleep and sleep. And it was amazingly ridiculous. I felt like there is no quality to my life, but, what do you do?
Yeah. Did you lose a bunch of weight?
I probably started this whole thing about 135 pounds because I was 20 weeks pregnant, and I was hovering around 125 normally all the time. So I started at 135. Oh, after the surgery, the fetus aborted at 20 weeks. It was a little girl.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm telling you that now so you can hear the rest of the story. So anyway, I continued to lose weight. I would say I probably got down to close to 100 pounds. My husband did say to me, hey, if you go under 100, I'm taking you back into the hospital, which is the one place I said I'm never going again. And so if I did drop below that, nobody knew. But then I started putting weight on. And you can gain more weight if you take your TPN slowly over longer amounts of time. But I wanted, like most people on TPN, I wanted to be able to live my life and get off my TPN and
do the infusion and get it over with.
Right,
and move on.
right. And so I still to this day do 10 hours a day. I do it at night. I usually hook up about 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night, and I do it while I'm sleeping. And miraculously, I've gotten totally used to that, and I can pump in all those calories at night and sleep straight through it.
Do you have to make sure you have to be really conscious about not moving around?
No, I have a pretty long tubing, and
it's good.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
So that's not a problem.
So you explain this to me. You eat what you can to preserve your esophagus, throat, and stomach.
Well, that was in the very beginning. I was really like trying to eat a little bit, like maybe a piece of toast or maybe a little bit of soup or that kind of thing.
And now nothing?
Well, and there was things in the beginning I couldn't eat at all. It would just make me totally constipated, believe it or not, which is shocking that could happen. But potatoes, if I ate a potato, I would just be miserable for a long time. Now I can eat whatever I want to eat, whenever I want to eat, but I feel the best if I eat very light meals, and I just, am well behaved. You know, and I've always been a good eater. I love vegetables. I love salad. I don't eat a lot of meat, but I love soup and I like fish. So now I eat pretty much everything.
Do you feel like being really insistent on trying to get something down in your early years kind of helped you get to where you are now?
Yes. Not giving up.
Yeah.
First of all, we live in a society that's totally dominated by food. I mean, you think about it.
Oh, yeah.
Every event, ceremony, everything, it's the food we're all talking about. I mean,
it's a culture of plenty.
It's a culture of, and there's restaurants and you entertain with food, and I love to cook and I like to have friends to my house for dinner, and that's a whole part of our social life that I wasn't about ready to walk away from. But for a couple of years, it was hard. It was hard.
So now what you're able to eat pretty much whatever. Or do you consult with Carol Ireton Jones or?
I do talk to Carol, and Craig Peterson when Craig was there.
Okay.
Craig was actually kind of the nutritionist on duty when the next big event happened in my life, which was 11 years later. So I was 33. Now I'm 43 or 44. And my husband and I went to Australia because he's from Australia and his dad was in heart failure. Okay. So we had kind of a difficult trip down to Australia. And the whole time I was there, I was just miserable. And I thought, wow, this time that plane trip really took it out of me, because I do skip TPN for the train or the plane trip over, which is kind of like missing it for a day. And normally that's not too big a deal. I can take hydration fluid when I get there. But this time I could not get back on my feet. To make a very long story short, when I turned 40, I kind of sat myself down and said, Sally, get over it. You're never going to have kids. Because after this, I could never get pregnant. I didn't want to do anything to artificially make my body pregnant if I couldn't just naturally get pregnant. Yeah. So I kind of figured that was not going to happen for me in this lifetime. And when I got back from the trip from Australia, I went to my doctor and I said, I feel like I'm pregnant. I feel sick. I'm really tired. And he examined me and said, no way. He said, you've got an endocrine problem and I need to send you up to this endocrinologist. Okay, I'm making this kind of a long story and I don't need to go into all the details, but by the time I got to the endocrinologist, it was the week of Christmas, 11 years after I had lost a 20-week-old fetus, and he sent me for an emergency ultrasound, and I had, lo and behold, a 20-week-old fetus inside my body.
What a Christmas present.
What a Christmas present. But I was scared to death, of course, because I thought,
Go
wow,
through that again, right?
who knows what's going to happen this time?
Yeah.
So I got together with Craig Peterson, Bruce Wolfe, all the fabulous people in my life at that time, and we devised a game plan that I would gain 25 pounds. So far I haven't gained any weight at all. That I would gain 25 pounds in the next 20 weeks, and we were going to have a little baby. And lo and behold, it turned out just fine. She's now 19 years old, and as far as we can tell, totally healthy. So, yeah.
Did she inherit any of the gut issues? Or?
Not that we know of. And I guess we should figure that out. But I don't know if it's something you can inherit. I don't know if anybody does know that.
Yeah, I wouldn't know,
Yeah.
Yeah. That's smooth sailing so far.
Yeah.
Look at you. You're just glowing just talking about it. Actually, when I Googled you to just learn what I can before you came over, and the little write-up that Oli did on pregnancy on TPN came up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's what I knew about.
Okay, so that's what's out there.
That's what I knew about you.
Yeah.
So you would probably share that story.
Yeah. So, so what they told me at the time was try and go as close to 24 hours a day on IV infusion.
Oof. Yeah.
So that during this last 20 weeks of my pregnancy, so that you...
Is that hard on you?
Yeah, because it's all portable. You can walk around with it.
Yeah.
And
I've seen the bags. Yeah. The bags are totally cool.
I'm going to sound like a whiner to say that I don't like going to the grocery store with my TPN hanging off me and all that kind of stuff, because a lot of people do it, and they do it really well, and they do it all the time. But I think the hardest part for me was actually I didn't feel good the whole time.
Okay.
And that's what wears you down. And
you're
I
just
also
kind of
felt
nauseous, or
and I couldn't eat at all. I couldn't eat a thing.
Mm-hmm. Do you get like a different type of energy from eating that you get from TPN?
No.
All the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But while I was pregnant, I couldn't tolerate eating anything. It's like my body knew, nope, we're just doing this TPN thing. You don't screw it up. Don't overeat.
Stick to the program.
Just stick to the program. And so I think because I didn't feel good, it seemed like that last part of my pregnancy was a long time. I was also apprehensive because I was worried about this fetus that was being raised on whatever the heck is in this stuff. I mean, it's man-made nutrients. It's not like I'm really eating. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, they do nutrition. I mean, the state of the art is they do everything they can for it to be as good for you as possible, but it's still rough on your organs, right? Like it's still rough on your liver, right? Like
it can be.
Yeah.
As far as I know, my liver's fine. I even had a liver scan down in Texas one time. A guy was doing a study on it, and so I flew down for that, and he said, no, you don't qualify. Your liver's in too good a shape. I've had problems with bones, and that's not from the nutrition. It was from high doses of heparin in my TPN initially, and the reason the heparin was in my TPN was to keep my catheter from clotting. So really in the biggest issue for all of us is our catheters, by far and away the biggest issue. I think the nutrition element of this, they've got it to pretty good. The fats have been not as good as they could have been for many, many years. Europe always had better lipid IV than we've had. But recently our fats are starting to get better. We're getting fish oils now. That's been about the last 2 years. And that's made a big difference for me. But the biggest problem is infections of your catheter. I mean, that did happen to me once. I had a catheter for 14 years, and it got infected. And one winter morning, I woke up, and my entire chest was red. So I said, okay, this is a really bad sign. And I went to the med center, and the doctor at the time took a look at me and goes, I got to admit you right now and get this catheter out. And I said, well, I'm parked in short-term parking. So I'm going to go home, and I'm going to get somebody to drop me off, and I'll be back. And he goes, Sally, I'm dead serious about this. You've got to get back. Well, by the time I got back, I realized
that was a mistake.
Oh, wow. I was sick. I was really sick. But anyway, I've been lucky. That was my only time. And there's a lot of these folks that I've met at different conferences that have had, so many
Just
catheters.
catheter after catheter after catheter.
And that is the biggest real problem. And that's why I can't go into public swimming pools. I did take his advice after the fact. And I said, once I had the catheter placed and I realized I don't want to be going through this every couple of years.
Yeah. So no swimming for you.
We finally put in a lap pool at my house, but
good for you.
it's not heated or anything, so I only swim in the summer.
Okay.
But I can swim.
Okay.
So that's good.
So as long as it's not public, as long as it's just you
Right.
and
Public swimming pools. And even Bruce said at the time, Dr. Wolf said at the time, you can go swim in Pewter Creek if you want, which is this muddy creek. You can swim in Lake Berryessa. You can go swim in the ocean. You can go swim at Lake Tahoe. Do not get in a public swimming pool.
Wow.
So that just tells you the bacteria count of a public swimming pool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Did that bring you some joy going back to swimming?
Oh, yeah. In fact, for years, I was swimming every night in my dreams. I mean, you get addicted to these things. You do. It's the whole endorphin release and the whole 9 yards. And I was just totally addicted. By the time I got the pool in, I wasn't addicted to swimming anymore, but it still feels great. I love to swim.
Yeah. I'll share with you that I had recently gotten back into running. I'd had to take years off with a knee injury, and I just recently like this week. Like the last 2 weeks.
Feels good, huh?
Oh my God, I was ready to it was like euphoric.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an incredible feeling.
It is.
So talk to me a little bit about NutriShare and sort of the difference that they've made for you.
Well, the thing that NutriShare does that sets them apart from the crowd is they really reach out and try and educate us to our condition, get us connected with other consumers that have similar conditions, keep us informed and latest on what's going on in the medical world as far as intestinal transplants, catheter-related issues, prep us for things like the last time I went, they said, you make sure that if you go in for a catheter replacement, you make sure you tell them what you need, where you want it, because a lot of times a catheter is a catheter to these guys, and I have
But it's not to you.
No. You don't want like a triple lumen catheter. I have a single port Hickman catheter, and that's what I'm used to, and that's what I want to have, and that's all I want to have. So it's just, you have to know that that's even an issue in order to be proactive. And so keeping us informed of what's going on, being there 24/7 for any concerns or questions or whatever. I have always used them as my first line of, here's what I want to do, how do I do it? I don't go to my doctor, I go to NutriShare. Things like traveling. I need to travel to Australia with Peter. What should we do? How much can I cut it down so I'm not carrying as much weight? What can I do? They'll work with me with all those things. It's great.
Yeah.
It's
What is
great.
traveling with TPN like?
Terrible.
Yeah.
Well, it's heavy because
It's liquid.
It's liquid.
Yeah.
So I pack it into carry-on suitcases. I carry it all onto the plane with me.
It's going with you.
It's going with me. And so
But it has to be kept cold, no?
And I pack those ice pack things in with it, and take all the vitamins, all the syringes. I flush my catheter every morning with saline and heparin, and I inject vitamins into my TPN every night. So there's 3 syringes for every day.
Oh, wow.
There's tubing for every day. There's the vitamins, the heparin, the saline, alcohol, prep pads, gauze, tape, dressing for the exit site of my catheter. So you have quite a lot of paraphernalia, pumps, batteries, chargers, whatever you need. So, for a person that likes to travel light, I don't do that anymore, So, but I have been fortunate and been able to go quite a few places, and I usually 10 days is pretty manageable for me if, and this is a big if, I have somebody coming with me.
Okay.
Because there's
They
no
can help you carry it,
physical
or-
way I can carry 10 days worth of TPN.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just can't do it.
Does TSA know what they're looking at?
Yeah. They've gotten
That's
way, 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 way better about this stuff. And you tell them it's all medical necessities. They really help you. They're great. I haven't had any problem with TSA.
Do they give you grief about the syringes on the plane?
No.
No.
No. I haven't had a problem with anything.
Okay.
So they've been great.
Where have you been?
I've been to Australia a number of times. I've been to Thailand. I've been to Guatemala.
Oh, we were going to go to Thailand.
Thailand's great.
We were gonna go. We had we were ready to do it, and then the king had died, and there was some,
yeah.
there was some political destabilization that had happened as a result of that. And they said,
Isn't there political destabilization in just about every place right now?
Yeah.
I mean, it's terrible.
Yeah.
I've been to Europe. A number of trips to Europe.
Where in Europe?
France, Paris, Germany, England, Scotland, Italy. Love to go to Spain. Haven't been there yet.
I just went last summer.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it great?
It's too hot for me to enjoy myself. Yeah, it was too hot for me to enjoy myself. I couldn't handle it. It was way too warm. You couldn't escape the heat. And then these buildings. What a curmudgeon, right? I can't have a good time in Barcelona, but these buildings are so hot. It's old world construction,
Right.
so you're not getting central AC ducts, and they have one little cooler on the window. And you kind of got to try and,
Yep.
And they don't have the same notion of giving you ice with your drinks over there.
Oh yeah, no, that would be a bummer.
Yeah, they just don't do it. They seem to think that if you serve something too cold, that you can't really taste it. And so you can't like, I couldn't escape the heat. We went in July. I was like, I'm just too hot. Guys, I'm way too hot. I can't enjoy myself. And then we went to Croatia, and that was phenomenal.
Yeah, Croatia, I've heard is just totally beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, lots of places I'd like to still go. My dad used to say, and I'm getting more and more in his boat all the time, he used to tell me, Sally, I could spend my entire life traveling all of California and never see everything I want to see.
Yeah.
And I feel really fortunate to live where I do because I feel that way. I have so much I want to see in Western United States.
Oh, yeah.
And I love Western United States, and there's a lot of it I haven't seen yet. So that's easier for me. I can put a cooler in a car and drive places. That's a walk in the park.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for someone who moved from San Diego to Sacramento, people always ask me why. I was like, well, there's a lot of neat stuff up here.
Yeah.
If you just know where to look.
Yeah.
One of my favorite drives is, from Sacramento through Novato up to Sebastopol.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful.
And then Jenner, California.
Jenner.
It's just amazing.
Yeah.
It's just incredible,
Yeah.
And it's accessible, who's your team at NutriShare?
Carol is who I usually talk to when I just, she'll call me on a regular basis just to kind of check in. Richard, I talk to about any kind of supply or TPN issues.
Okay.
Prior to Carol, Craig Peterson was the person, and Craig's retired now, and I hope he's having the time of his life because he deserves it. But Craig helped a lot with just different nutritional things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. What else? Is there anything else that we have not covered yet?
The elephant in the room is, and I think NutriShare is really helping with this whole thing, but the elephant in the room is how this country is going to deal with healthcare because of the cost. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if anybody does, but that one is frightening. It's just frightening what this does to people's lives and how financially insecure you become when you realize you can't afford to cover your cost of staying alive. I mean, fortunately, my husband has been employed all this time, and we have paid for the highest end insurance that we can afford so that we can have good coverage. But you know what? I turned 65 this year. Now I go on to Medicare, and I'm sure that's going to have to work out, but it's always these kinds of things that where before I never would think twice about it.
Yeah.
You know, I just said my responsibility is keep myself really healthy. Now that I am dependent, it's a huge issue. It's probably one of those stresses, background stresses. But having said that, what I think one of the things we haven't covered is it takes a community. And that's why NutriShares plays such a huge role in this whole thing. I can't be who I am and live the life of quality that I have without the community of support that I get. And NutriShare is a huge part of that. My husband's a huge part of that. Friends and colleagues and the other consumers are all big parts of that. And I think that you can't get through stuff like this without that.
On your own. Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't.
Yeah. Yeah. So navigating with insurance and like dealing with insurance companies has been almost like a part-time job sometimes, or?
For me, not so much, but I think for a lot of people, it's a full-time job. I think my insurance has covered me.
You've been lucky.
I've been lucky.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been really lucky. One of the things that's really hard about talking about all these issues is because, one, I came into it being super healthy one day and totally dependent on TPN the next. So I went, and so I think my recovery, as difficult as it was way better, and I had a way better final outcome than people that get here because they've had cancer and they've been on a lot of drugs and they've had 10 surgeries, or they have Crohn's disease and they've had kind surgeries their whole life.
Withered down over time.
Yeah, and so they're already compromised, and then they end up on TPN, and it's, you know, they can never really regain and be back to a strong, healthy person. And I feel like, wow, I got really, really, really lucky. You know, as lucky as you can get for having gone through all this stuff. But I recognize that for a lot of people, it's not a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you know, I mean, what's interesting too is, I mean, a lot of those people do find a way to thrive in their own ways, right?
Right.
And kind of find joy in you know, in their own ways, in their own aspects of life that, you know, that they have available to them. You know,
that's right.
That's important. You seem to have, like, you've managed this particularly successfully. You're robust. What advice would you have for others?
Nature, time, and patience. Really. If I am not out in nature every day, I am really fortunate. I live in the country, so I take walks all the time, and I do yoga. So I think taking responsibility for your body, your mind, and your spirit, and whether you're a healthy person or not, those things are your responsibility. And I do take that really seriously. I drink lots of water. That was one of the things that I was told not to do, but I don't want to drink salty Pedialyte, and I'm thirsty all the time. I want water, and I love ice water. And so I try to drink my well water, which is super hard water.
Yeah.
You know, it leaves a deposit on every tea kettle you boil water in. And that water, I don't get dehydrated at all from drinking.
Well, it's got the salt right in there.
If I drink bottled water, it is dehydrating.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. So anyway, I think you figure it out. You have to take responsibility, health, mental outlook on life, your own physical health, your...
Let me pause you right there. As robust as you are, and you said yourself, you didn't come into it with another diagnosis that is perhaps more debilitating than what you have. Nonetheless, there was, I would imagine, some dark times there.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and there's some times where you could have
the yin and yang.
It's really up to you. It really is up to you which way you're going to go with this mentally.
Right.
Yeah.
You get to make choices all the time, and I think we as a society look on depression or anger or moodiness or any of those as, and I look at them as the dark side of the bright side. I kind of feel like it's a balancing act. I think it's really healthy to have all of those emotions and kind of keep them in check. In fact, when I'm feeling way up, I just go, oh, this is a bad sign because
the down's coming.
So, but
That's really funny.
So you got to be careful here, but
I'm gonna tell myself that, like, my Catholic guilt will kick in, next time I'm really happy.
So yeah, I don't know. I just feel like, sure, I've had my moments of feeling like, this is such a bummer, or I don't want to be living like this, or I wish I could, all those things that everybody has.
Yeah.
But it is all you have to do. All you have to do. Take a walk through Capitol Park right now, right across the street here, and you're going to see 10 people that you wouldn't want to trade places with.
Yeah. Ain't that the truth?
It's the truth. I mean, everybody gets their thing to deal with in life, and this one's not as bad as what a lot of people have to cope with.
Yeah.
So.
Sally, I think that's a pretty good place to leave it.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, it was fun talking to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was painless, huh?
Yeah, very painless. So should we say anything else about NutriShare?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're pretty comprehensive. Folks can, we'll do a wrap at the end. We'll flash their information at the end as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just to be clear, they've been totally. Were you courted? Yeah, let me ask you this: were you courted by like other pharmacies, or how does that work?
Not really.
Because there's a number. There's a number of other providers out there, right? Like,
right.
Do they send you mail, or
I get mail?
You get mail.
I get mail. So sure, if I was not happy with NutriShare, I would know a lot of places to turn to.
What's that landscape like? How do they lobby you? How do they?
Mostly through Oli. I think Oli Foundation is the conduit for getting my contact information.
Got it.
That's how I think. But I'll get flyers through the mail or see ads in the Oli newsletter that I get.
What do the flyers say?
Just, what a great company we are and what we provide and where we're at and that kind of thing. I've never had anybody contact me by phone or email or anything like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So if you were dissatisfied, you would know where to go.
Right.
Yeah. Have you ever considered it?
No.
Nope.
Not at all. No, I truly, I think NutriShare does a top-notch job. They are cutting edge in their industry, and they're close for me. I like the fact that they're based out of right here at Elk Grove, and I like all the staff.
And then they have their centers across the United States, right?
Right. Yeah. But all the staff is wonderful. I have zero complaints.
Yeah.
And so they've built my loyalty, for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sally Moore, thanks for coming on.
You're welcome. Good talking to you.